Welcome, everybody. It's good to see you again. I feel like we're all BFFs now, as much time as we spent together. So, if you will, look at the screen that's up, put your name, your information, your position, and your site in the chat room so we have record of your attendance, and we'll get started here in about 2 minutes. Thank you. Just a reminder, please put your name, your position, if you're an LEA or CBO, and your site. I know some of you have cohort 16, so that we have record for cohort 17. Please make sure you list the site for 17. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's get started. Hopefully everyone can get signed in as we go. I don't think today will take up the full 2 hours, but I do want to say to you what we're going to talk about is very important. It's going to benefit your program, your students, and your community way beyond anything you could ever imagine. So first, as you know, I'm Annette, and we have Alicia that will be with us today. She's our excellent wave, Alicia. PD coordinator for 21st Century. Dr. Pines will not be able to join us, but she did have great input in the PowerPoint. And of course, we have our great team, Erica and crew at TPI, and our wonderful TAs, Joe, Nicey, Kim, and Novelette. And if they're on at the end, I'm going to get them to show their face so you can see them and just know who they are. So let's talk about our purpose today and what we're doing. We're going to talk about stakeholders. Stakeholders, I can tell you when I took my administrative test to become an administrator, I went through instantly and wrote stakeholders as an answer to every question. And there were 100 and I think 14 questions in the administrator's test when I took it back then. That's how important what we're talking about today is. A stakeholder is anybody who is actively involved directly or indirectly with your program. So think of everybody in your community, think of everybody virtually, think of anybody that you may have association with in any way. They are a stakeholder. And there's pros and cons, but there's way more benefits as long as we align it like we talk about today. The purpose of today is to ensure you understand and provide you the varying levels of support and enhancement through stakeholder involvement. So what we're going to do today is we're going to break it down pretty simple. And I know Y for Y did a presentation last year. If you were in cohort 16, you were able to see it on the stakeholders and partnerships. But today we're just going to talk about how to support it, how to enhance it, how to evaluate it, and how to make sure it's matching your RFA. So let's talk about stakeholders. If you can, raise your hand. How many of you have a ton of stakeholders and sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, we have too many stakeholders, too many people, too much input. Sometimes you have a lot of opinions and a lot of people coming in. That's a good thing. We just have to get it all together. So of course your program staff, volunteers, teachers, students, parents. Now let's get outside the box a little bit. Community members, advisory council. What about if you're an LEA? Do you have any local churches, or do you have any local boys and girls clubs, or 4-H clubs, or anything else that could be a stakeholder with you? Or if you're a CBO, are you looking, hey, what organizations are out there? Are you a part of ACEA or other organizations that could be stakeholders? Because the stakeholders will drive you to do even more in your program outside of your RFA by bringing in so many resources for you. But you have to have expectations with your stakeholders. And when you're selecting them, obviously you want to have an agreement with them. But most importantly, you want to know that they're going to invest the energy. They have the ability and the eagerness to help you. You know, a lot of people will come in and say, I'd love to be a part of your program, but I can only, come once every 6 months or something. Okay, that's all right. As long as you'll invest that energy and enthusiasm and we have everything together once every 6 months, we can make it work. Also, with your advisory council, they're willing and transparent to provide input or concerns about the needs of your program. So, having those parents involved and feeling comfortable with your relationship and their relationship to say, hey, tell us about your concerns and what the program needs to get to the next level. You want to develop buy-in and direction of making your program better and better. I always believe in evaluation, I always believe in criticism, anything there is out there, surveys, whatever, because in essence, we're going to get better at getting better. And we're going to find the areas that we're weak in and either find stakeholders to help us get up that area and be better in it, or we're going to develop those skills ourselves by getting professional development. The main thing that's important when developing stakeholders and relationship is that you have strong connections. You stay connected. It's not just once every now and then. You stay connected with them and keep them informed and ask them to keep you informed. We want to make sure that our stakeholders are transparent and we also are positive at all times. Alicia is going to talk a little bit now about the grantees and you all, what you should do when talking about stakeholders.
So of course, everything that we're doing with the 21st Century Grant, we want to make sure that you all are fully aware that we are connected with what is in the RFA and what is in the 23-24 grant guidelines, our guidance from the State Department as it is in correlation with federal government. And so that document that we always talk about for components is in the RFA, or for with the State Department, it is called the 23-24 grant guidance. Component 16 is what comprises the stakeholders' information. And we're going to go a little bit more into detail about it in just a minute, but the grant is built on the ability to communicate, build a relationship, make it a community involved process when you are developing or looking at your students' needs and whom you are serving in the 21st century through the 21st century program. So we first want to start with communication. And the communication, there should be a communication plan that is regularly maintained. We want to make sure we do it by any means necessary because it is a must, it is a requirement, it's a part of your grant. And if you look up under component 16, there should be information about how your grant was written for communication. We can look at different areas such as the telephone, the website, newsletters, or email. We want to know who in particular do we want to make sure that we communicate which stakeholders, how we communicate to them is very necessary and needed. So let's talk about disseminating the communication plan. There is a process. You want to disseminate information first to your students, your parents, and community in a manner that is understandable and accessible. So I do know that when I was in the building, and even here at the State Department, when we have anything that is needed to be communicated, you can go onto the 21st Century website for the state of Alabama that TPI handles for us, or you can actually go on this ALSDE's website and you will be able to see information regarding the 21st Century grant. That's the case that it should be for our grantees. If you're holding a 21st Century grant, your school or your sites that are hosting 21st Century programs, there should be a link on there that gives direct information about your 21st Century program. You want to make sure that the information is specific that you are communicating about, that you're talking about student performance as it correlates with the benefits of being in a 21st Century program. You want to talk about any upcoming activities or schedules. If it's located on your site, you should also have uh, maybe a link that goes through email to your different stakeholders, the parents, community, your advisory council. You want to make sure that you have a really good communication plan in place. And then you want to have a timeline, which is a timeline that you all have already committed to because it was uploaded into EGAP 2.0 and the related documents. But you should also have a timeline for when you want all your communication to go out, especially now that you're opening into a brand new cohort for 17. Hopefully it has been communicated that you have received a grant to all the respective stakeholders and a timeline for when the next step should be. How did you do that? Did you do that through your website, newsletter, telephone call, however, and then your method of how you're going to communicate to your stakeholders. You can utilize presentations such as this, pre-recorded presentations. You can also have information that has been done through Facebook or YouTube, but somehow you're communicating to all of your stakeholders what is going on with your 21st century grant. The communication plan must address the leadership identified in your CBO and your LEA, the community, and all your stakeholders. So we said stakeholders could be our students, not could be, but our students, your families, as well as the community. And then you want your partners and your vendors who are part of your program to be fully aware of your plans. And it is very important or imperative that the communication plan include interactions, whether it be daily or weekly, to address all of the efforts that you have put forth to make sure that your school day teachers who are teaching during the academic school day when the program is not open is fully aware of what's going on in the after school program. And I know from just past experiences, one of the ways that we communicated was through newsletters just to the staff. And also when there were staff meetings, there would be something put into the principal's notes so that they will be aware of what's going on with what the needs, accomplishments are, next steps, a different thing. And sometimes we would even have photos to share of how well the 21st century program was running, or if we had any needs, and maybe we had a situation that we may have needed more minds to come together to problem solve. So that's different ways that I just shared that you can communicate your plan. So when we're talking about communication plan, the plan should include the following. It should be your students' needs. Of course, it should talk about your academic progression, different projects, assignments, and activities that you have accomplished. A picture says 1,000 words. Even if you were to do just a snippet of students explaining some of their projects, talking about attendance, especially if you have a wait list, just letting your staff know how greatly needed the program is and how well it's going and the attendance, and is that attendance impacting the attendance of those same students when they're in the regular academic school day. And then the behavior of the students, how are the behaviors different? Have they improved? What are some things that may be happening during the school day with specific students that may be helpful for those that are providing services to those same students in the afternoon in the program, as well as those individuals who are working with those same students who may need additional assistance, who are challenging during the academic school day, that you can share with those teachers during the academic day. And then how you are communicating the things that are activities that are happening with your family and your parents, and what type of home engagement activities are you all doing. I remember being able to see some of you all's home engagement activities. You all got really creative. On our past grants, those of you who are on here now that have Cohort 17 but have had past grants, where you actually had YouTube videos live going on where parents were following the instructor, and then the parents had to record themselves, usually where the students record themselves doing the activities together, and they would send it back to the after school program, and they would piece it all together and have one long movie theater of showing how the parent and family home was engaged in the type of projects that was going on. So everything is tying in to get together. And one of the main things we need to make sure that we are communicating to all of our stakeholders, to include our students. How well are those students who are attending based off of what you've written your objective to be, how many days they would need to be in the program to be able to say how well they are successfully measuring up when it comes to the GEPRA measures and its reporting process. So that information should be shared with the staff of the regular school day, the staff of the after-school program, as well as entering into a brand new year, regardless of what year of the grant that you're holding, to keep everybody's mind together and focused. You also want to share that with your stakeholders, how well your students are progressing and doing well. So that should all be a part of your communication plan with your stakeholders. So, stakeholders engagement. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we can evaluate our stakeholders, but it's so good to go back and to reflect. It's not a means to just talk about what needs to be done, but also what has been going on. So there should be a periodic evaluation of progression that has been going on, how well the goals have been achieved and those objectives, how well is the collaboration going between partners, the LEA, the CBO, the Advisory Council, and any other stakeholders that are a part of your 21st Century Grant, to include staffing that are actually staffed with the program and those who are not, who are at the school building, even to include the superintendent, as well as the principals or the administrators of the building. And then you're collaborating to figure out what are some areas that we need to refine. Maybe we did a little too much of this and should have done a little bit more of this, or what areas do we need to improve? We saw that the students really took off. Attendance increased when we did certain parts of the program versus this part of the year versus that time of the year. Just coming back and having great minds coming together to look at even the performance measures that are being reported on those students who are part of the program. And so you want to do a periodic evaluation. This is something that I have been recently learning about myself and think that would be such an asset. And we'll talk a little bit more extensively at the end, towards the end of this, because we do have a document that we would love to share for you to be able to do just what I've just described. Annette?
Thank you, Alicia. And she talked a lot about the evaluation plan, and we have a checklist at the end. But I want to remind you again that it's important to not operate on an island, but to operate as a community. The name of the grant itself is 21st Century. All of you are thinking it right. I see Libby saying it to herself. So just embrace that and know when you were approved, it was based around what you were not only going to do in your program, but in the community and the community impact you were going to have through your program. So pre-planning is the key. You've got your RFA, you know what's going on. So now what are we going to do on the backside? So when we're pre-planning, we need to talk about how are we going to evaluate you coming into our program or our program working with you as a stakeholder. How are we going to evaluate that, and how are we going to know that that's working for the program and meeting our goals and objectives? One thing we have to do is be transparent. And with that, we have surveys and other things that we can do to be able to say, hey, you tell us what's going on, we'll tell you what's going on, and let's work together to make it better. We have our newsletter and all the different communication methods, but I'm talking surveys with those teachers who we send out. I don't know how many, what are the grades? What are you working on? Is there a better way? So ask them, how can we get more information from you and evaluate what you're sending us and we're sending you? So let's talk about kind of the crucial part on the next slide. of something you need to make sure you have in your handbook. You need to make sure that you have this posted around, you cover it in your parent meetings, you talk about it with the stakeholders that come in. It is required by federal law with the 21st Century Grant. So please know that and please document it. Again, you can copy and paste this right out, put it in your handbook, put it in your newsletter, wherever on your website, whatever you need to do. But make sure you have a way for people to actually submit complaints. I want to remind you, complaints aren't always bad. They make us better. You got to get through that dark tunnel, that silver lining, depending on where you are, there's that saying that says, to me, there's a silver lining to everything that goes on. And so if you have a complaint, make sure you follow the federal procedures along with your local procedures, including, probably letting your LEA, your superintendent, whoever it may be, know what's going on, know about the complaint, bringing everybody in. I will say with complaints, I encourage you to take that 24-hour, breathe for a moment. Don't just shoot off that email. But in the meantime, as soon as you receive that complaint, you let the stakeholders within your grant and who services the students know, hey, we have a complaint. We need to set up a meeting and decide on our response and then get with them. And then not to get back and forth in that email, it's a complaint and you get back and forth, back and forth. Let's just set up a meeting. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. Let's see what we can do from there. So transparency is key. The next thing is embracing those complaints because knowing the silver lining, getting through that dark tunnel, it's going to be better on the other side. It's going to make us all better and stronger. Let's talk about some FAQs. So, all right, let me see who's up here today. Jessica, do stakeholders need MOUs?
Okay, so you'll have to be patient with me because we're a first year program, but I think that they do based on what we heard in some of the prior trainings last week.
Okay, everybody that's on camera, give her a thumbs up. Yes, they do need MOUs. And one of the things that we look at are those MOUs current, meaning do you have the current day? When you're doing an MOU, make sure you have the current year, the current signature, anything you're uploading into eGAP or for compliance monitoring, make sure that MOU is for the current year. All right, Dr. Brittany, can stakeholders be alone with students? Where'd Dr. Brittany go? She's thinking about it. Let's see. Jennifer, can you answer this? Can stakeholders be alone with students?
Is it if they have a background check?
Okay. Yes, they'll have to have a background check. What else will we need? We probably want someone to evaluate them before we leave them alone with students. Should we always have someone from our program with them? Yes. We should not leave them alone with students. Always someone that is working in the 21st Century program should be with them. They may not be presenting the lesson, they may not be doing the guitar lessons, whatever it may be, but they need to be there and watching what's going on and be a part with the students.
And be 21 as well, right, Annette?
There you go. Yes, very good. Can stakeholders give the program money or supplies? Let's see. Sadia?
Okay, good morning. Now I gotta go back into my my memory with this one. I'm going to say, gosh, money or supplies. I feel like money, no. Supplies, they can support the program in kind. I'm gonna go with yes. That's my final answer.
Do you have a lifeline? Jessica?
I I don't know.
I don't know either. Jessica, what do you think?
I agree with her. I'm comfortable with just saying yes on the supplies, but I'm unsure about the money.
Okay. Trisha, what do you think? Trisha's like, I'm thinking, I need that clock. Ding, 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 ding.
Sorry, I've got a class with me.
Oh, sorry.
I think supplies, no money.
Well, in essence, you're all right. And then supplies, if you do receive supplies, where do you have to document those and make sure that they stay with the 21st century program? Can anybody answer that for me?
Inventory?
Inventory, very good. So even though they gave you the supplies, one, you need to have an agreement with them. Hey, you're giving our program this. You need to make sure whatever they're giving you, especially if it's something technology wise, it meets the sam.gov. There's a lot of gray areas, I guess you could say, with supplies, receiving supplies, but it is allowable. But I would just warn you to be careful with that. And then if you do receive them, make sure you mark them, make sure you document that they gave it to you. You send them that, you have them both sign off on it. So you're just real careful for it. And I think donations are great. They're wonderful because they make programs and people better and schools better, but just be careful with it. So let's talk about this. How often should a new stakeholder work in your program? Abby? What about Lisa? Oh, wait, Abby's coming on. Come on, Abby.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Okay, how often should a new stakeholder work in our program?
Mm-hmm.
I think as long as they're background checked and 21 years old, they're able to work as often as possible if they're not left alone with students. Is this
Excellent.
correct?
Yeah, yes, it is correct. So what I
Okay.
want to say with that, it was a little bit of not a trick question, but make us all think. If they're doing guitar lessons, should they be doing guitar lessons every day? Or if they're teaching banking, should they be doing banking every day? Um, if they haven't been associated with your program, should they instantly start working, or should you gradually bring them in, let them visit the program and work through it? So it was kind of not a trick question, but just to make us all think about, how often should new workers? Well, let's break them in correctly. Let's make sure, let's go over a lesson plan with them and just make sure they're all ready to be in front of our students, right? And they align with our RFA and what they're doing. So thank you, Abby. I appreciate you answering that trick question.
Yeah, that was tricky.
And if anybody has a unique stakeholder and or a partner, you'd like to put that in the chat, feel free to do that and share. I do believe the more we share and network with each other, the better we'll get, and those aha moments will come up. All right, Alicia.
Okay, so remember we talked about at the very beginning that everything that we're going to be working with you all about when it comes to the operations and running of the program, it must be in alignment with the ALSDE grant guidance, which is your RFA that has been written, but is our RFA, but it has more of the details of what is allowable and not allowable for each component. And so this particular area that we're talking about with stakeholders is up under component 16. You can find it on pages 30 through 31 through the ALSD grant guidance. But you want to, if you recall, under that particular guidance, when you were granted the funds, it was because you have provided Form 4, which is a preliminary listing, because you were applying for the grant in hopes of getting it, and now you have achieved it, and it has been uploaded as Form 4 in EGAP 2.0. If you have not had the opportunity to look at that list, you need to go in and pull it and look at it to see, is it accurate? Will those particular vendors or partners actually be assisting with the runnings of the program? And then as you go through this grant years, going into year 2 and going into year 3, your list should expand. It should grow. Hopefully no one will not be removed from the list for whatever reason, but you want to make sure that the list continues to grow. And then you want to also go and look at your component 16 and make sure, how was your advisory council addressed in your grant? Advisory council is a requirement when it comes to this grant, and you are expected to meet at least once every 6 months. And it has to be documented, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that process looks. But then, of course, if it's in the RFA, then you know it's got to be in the compliance monitoring checklist. And so you will find that up under standard 2 of the compliance monitoring checklist. And you can find it on pages 14, 15, 20, and 21. So when we were talking about those different items, these are the types of documents that you would have to provide. Remember, we talked about communication earlier. Guess what? You are going to need to provide samples of the communication that has been provided to your stakeholders. Surveys will need to be provided as part of compliance monitoring to show that you surveyed your stakeholders. Your evaluation results, have you shared those with your stakeholders? How was it shared? What's the documentation for that? You have had an advisory committee you have met. There has to be documentation to support that. You will also list your partners and volunteers for your program, documentation for your partners' surveys. Did you survey your partners? MOUs that have to have been created and committed to while running the program, because if they were providing any form of services, whether it be volunteer or for funds, or if they received funds for working in the program, then you should have MOUs on file, and the compliance monitoring requires that you have documentation of it. And then also, last but not least, when it comes to compliance monitoring, documentation from easy reports showing that you have identified your partners and volunteers in your easy reports, because that is a part of GEPRA. The grant, like Annette said earlier, is built off of the community. It's not solely just the LEA or the CBO or just the school and the school's principal. It is a group of stakeholders that comprises of those individuals as well as others outside into the community. So we talked a little bit, I'm gonna need to go back for just a second. So I'm gonna share with you the screen for the compliance monitoring. And so this is just for your eyes to see that on page 14, like I said earlier, right here up under standard 2, which we said is program effectiveness, but this is the standard and it is in alignment with component 16. Number 6, here we have right here the communication we were talking about. There should be monthly samples of when you communicated, or the program communicated to the regular school day classroom teachers about what's going on in the 21st century grant, whether it be some needs on whatever the case may be, but it should be ongoing communication. And it could be done through a newsletter, but definitely want to make sure you have communication. And then on page 15 of the document, those surveys, this is for telling you particularly who are you supposed to survey. There are no ors. All of these individuals should be surveyed. The students should be surveyed because they are the customers. The teachers, whether they're in the program or not in the program, everyone is being touched by having a 21st century program. The parent, as well as your partners. And then on number 9, the documentation for evaluation results. Your end of the year evaluation results. It should have been communicated. If you were cohort 16, you should be working on this and you're part of 17 now, but next year, when you get your evaluation results, cohort 17, you need to make sure that you are projecting or sharing the results in terms for your stakeholders to understand the outcome of your evaluation, and then your advisory committee documentation, because right here, you're supposed to meet at least once every 6 months. And I know we just had our advisory committee meeting last week on our level here at the state. So we have to make sure we have documentation as well to support that we are in compliance with the grant. And so as you can see, you're going to show how you have scheduled your advisory committee meetings. You're going to show where you have announced it and have sent out invitations to participate. You should have an agenda. You should have sign-in sheets, and you should also have meeting minutes or notes. So if you realize all of these things, there's no or choose one or two. All of these areas must be documented to authenticate the fact that you did have an advisory committee meeting. And also right here, the words each are bolded and capitalized because each one of these individuals are stakeholders and they should have access to knowing what the evaluation results were from the previous year of having the grant. So like I said, this is year 1 for cohort 17. But if you have a cohort 16, then you should be making sure that this gets out this year. Also, we're going to go to page 20. Number 19, and we're still up under talking about stakeholders. You see where it's highlighted? It's asking to list all the partners and the services they provide and the frequency of services. We mostly can find that on our Form 4, but you need to make sure that your Form 4 is updated to the services that are being provided from your partners and your volunteers. And then on page 21, number 21 is talking about your partners once again, listing those individuals here again. Just make a copy and make sure it is uploaded in place with number 21. Those MOUs that we talked about, if any of those individuals provided any type of services, whether it was for payment or volunteer, you should have a MOU or memorandum of understanding or agreement on file. If you were one of the individuals or grantees that has a collaborative partnership agreement, you should have that available for documentation. Partner surveys should be available for where you have surveyed your partners. And once again, remember we talked about those ease reports. This is exactly where it is asking for it to be uploaded, showing that you did provide it to ease reports. So it should look like a document that came from ease reports and not just Form 4, because it's authenticating that you did submit it for your ease reports. I'm gonna go back to the presentation. So that's the information we talked about earlier. And the partner evaluation. This is something that we wanted to make sure that you were aware of. I was able to find this on U4U or Y4Y that we talked about from the US DOE. This gives you an opportunity to go back and reflect on areas that needed to be addressed while you were working with your partners. It's also going to help you look at what your strengths are, your areas that you need to grow in. But so if you notice under recognizing the program gaps and needs, first thing they ask you, did you ask the youth? Those are your customers. Did you ask them ways that you felt like the program could be improved? And all you would do is put a strong check, a check under strong if you did and you felt very strongly about it. If you felt like you did, but it was okay. Or if you need some work in that area, you need to check off in that part. This kind of just gives you just an idea. And those of you who are looking for surveys to survey the different stakeholders, I strongly suggest that you go on Y4Y to find some of those surveys as well. And that link will be found at the end of this presentation. And if you go up under the area that said identify partners, did you all assess whether your partners would be a good fit? Were they a good fit? And so then you just check off those 3 little columns right there. You go up under the bolded area where it says recruit partners, was that effective? Were you able to share with them your vision and mission? Do they know what your program is all about? There's those MOUs that you utilize partnership agreements or MOUs as necessary to clarify roles and responsibilities. And then the next section says, maintain partnerships. You know, sometimes we can get caught up in the logistics of running the program that we don't intentionally mean to do this, but we may have forgotten to honor our partners publicly and privately for what they have contributed to our program. And so this checklist just kind of makes you take a pause and say, hey, have we done this yet? If you haven't and the school year hasn't ended or the program hasn't ended, then that might be a really great way. I know some of us do not have summer programs, but if you do have a summer program and you know that you have quite a bit of partners that are helping you run your summer program by providing some different STEM opportunities or creative arts or enrichment, I suggest that you do it during the academic school year and in the summer program to just let them know how grateful you are for what they have, you know, contributed to your program. Last but not least, certainly at the top is on page 2. You know, survey your students, find out from them, did they enjoy working with the partners? Do they even know who the partners are? You know, sometimes our partners may contribute some certain items like Annette mentioned, donations and things, and they may not be actively involved, but you want to make sure that the students recognize and know those key leaders and those key stakeholders or volunteers or organizations that are coming out and providing to them so that they can be able to reap the benefits of being in the 21st century program. And so there's just some other little bulleted items just to bring to your attention to make sure that you touch and you know, get involved with your students to make sure that they know about their the program. And another part of this that I really liked was the fact of asking the students if they feel comfortable sharing their thoughts, their feedbacks, or suggestions with their partners. I suggest that when you come to have a meeting of the minds about how well the program ran and you're looking at your partners and you have some of your stakeholders, invite a youth to sit at the table with that debriefing of going over everything to just find out if you guys are on the right path of meeting the needs of your students through your vendors. So those are just a couple of things to help you go back and reevaluate, and this will be shared with you when we send this presentation out on Friday. Annette?
Thank you. I want to say too, just going in and watching your stakeholders and how they're presenting, but more importantly, are the students engaged? Do they look like they're excited, they're learning, they're moving, they're hands-on? I know as an administrator, used to have this iPad, you'd go in, you're supposed to check, okay, you know, are the standards on the board? Does it say today we will, blah, blah, blah. And I always was one, you know, I'll get to that because I need to check that box, but most importantly, let me watch the students. Are they learning? Are they engaged? Are they bored? Are they having fun? Because I always say students vote with their feet, their eyes, their minds. You can see it when they're excited about what they're doing. So let's talk a little bit about our updates that are coming. One, we have the 15th, which is on your own. You may not do it exactly on the 15th, but we know a lot of you are Christmas vacation, parties, holiday parties, things going on. So we're going to do a recording and you'll just take time to watch the recording. The other thing we have is our FER report training. And if you're like, I don't know what that is, that's okay. If you're cohort 16, hopefully you know what it is and you're already through that process. We have our updates every second Tuesday, which are virtually 3:30 to 4:30. We resume those in January. We don't have those in the month of December due to the holidays and the vacations. And then, of course, we have our weekly newsletter emailed out every Friday by Erica. So as we start to wrap up, I want to remind you the one group we have not talked about is you are each other's stakeholders. You can create a text group, you can a communication group, you can meet, you know, in regions, however, at different conferences, whatever you can do to network and be each other's holders to grow your programs and grow your base of professional knowledge. Our resources, we have a ton of resources. Of course, our Alabama website, which links to YouTube with a number of things we've done through the years. Y for Y, I just can't say enough about all the things they have. We did a year-long program with them last year on that Tuesday, professional development. They're amazing. They also have another site now called Foundations Inc., which expands a little bit further out. And then, of course, you have your Alabama Expanded Learning Alliance. That's a mouthful, isn't it? And our Alex. But I also want to say, who else is our resource? TPI, Erica. You know you can call them and our TAs, and we're always here for you across the board to help you run the most effective program. Our contact information, of course, you probably already have this, but if you don't, just snap it and know it will be on our website to communicate with us anytime. The best communication is to follow that sheet that we gave you that shows you who your TA is, that's out in the field, and then who your TA is here, and then go from there. That way the communication line stays together. We're not all over the board. So if you can work in that, it really helps us a lot. And then we're talking about evaluation. We're talking about stakeholders. We need your input to know what we can do better in presentations like this to help you run an effective program and the things we require out of our directors and coordinators. So please take a moment to get your phone out, do the QR code, and give us some feedback. At this time, we'll take any questions that anybody may have. You can just unmute yourself and let us know any questions you have.
Hey, I'm gonna also add, I sent out an email today about the external evaluator training. Hi, y'all, I'm Erica Rucker. Sorry. So if you, that was just a reminder for y'all. You don't have to attend the training. You can if you would like to, but we'll do some external evaluation training with our grantees soon. But we want to get your external evaluators into the training. So if we don't have them, we've already contacted them last week, but they might not be on our list, sir, because they might be brand new. So if you're an external evaluator, please go ahead, and everybody should, please go ahead and forward them my email, give them a little nudge that they need to either attend the training that is being held tomorrow or they'll attend the one that's on Wednesday. So we have one in the morning and we have one in the afternoon. It's mandatory. I know in the past we've had people who say, oh, well, I work, so I can't attend. So we have one at 5:30, so they can attend that one. But they need to register so we can have their email address. That's why we've asked that during this registration for this training for not only your cohort 17 contacts, because we don't have your email addresses for site directors, and for your external evaluators contact information. So if you should have one, please forward that to your external evaluators just to make sure that they are attending one of the trainings that we offer. And if y'all have questions on that, let me know.
Great point, Erica. I know I signed up for it just so I can get a refresher. Also, some other things you might think about too is talking to, your outside sources on, hey, what kind of things do you do with your external evaluator to prep them to come in to be an evaluator of your program? Erica does a great job with what they cover, but you may have some other things. Just how do you get in the building and where do I park and things like that, communication tools. Any other questions? Yes, Trish?
Yes, the video for Friday, you already have one posted. Is that the one we're supposed to watch? Because I watched it.
Yes, ma'am.
And is there anything we need to do to prove that we watched it?
Well, you email us that you've watched it for whatever reason and tell us the reason you weren't able to attend the training. And then, of course, we'll pull it from the analytics from the website to make sure you were on there the full time.
Okay.
And just know that that's part of our federal requirements that we have to make sure you have the training to run a program so you're not a high risk or lose funding.
Thank you.
And then last but not least, I will tell you, we're going to hire 3 new TAs out in the field in conjunction with TPI. So if you know somebody, they don't have to be a former administrator, but someone who's passionate about education, out of school time. If you'll just send Erica and I a copy of their resume or have them send it so we can start going through those. We'll post the job, but we just wanted to let you know that, hey, we're getting ready to have some more people out there across the region to work with Kim and Joe. So if you know somebody and they're good and passionate and willing to work and care about 21st century and out of school time, please let us know. We would love to have some resumes. Any other questions, Alicia?
I'm good. I hope was beneficial for everyone. And I was thinking, I don't know, I may even add some additional resources for those who are looking. Y for Y has a way to pick out additional partners outside of what you already have. If you were to lose a partner that you felt like was a great asset and you're trying to figure out how to replace, I'm gonna also forward it to Erica to post it, because it'll give you ideas of what types of partnerships to look at. It's a good brainstorming activity that you can do with your team. And when I say your team, not just necessarily your 21st century team, it could be anyone in the building that serves students but does not actually in your 21st century grant, but supports in a different way, and just kind of bring the meeting of the minds together. So that's something additional I just thought about while we were talking.
Great. And I know we have the Y for Y presented last year, and it's uploaded on our website on partnerships. And they were very thorough and very good PowerPoint and information there, which will help with your stakeholders. Well, if you don't have any more questions today, we're going to finish early. So have a good extended lunch. If you were able to take some time off to attend this training, maybe now you'll have a little time to go to lunch. And if you need anything anytime, please let us know. Have a good rest of the day.